Hi, my name is Sabrina Watson, and today I will be discussing the Macondo blowout and explosion. The Macondo blowout and explosion occurred on April 20, 2010, about 50 miles off the coast of Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico. The rig that the Macondo well was situated on was called the Deepwater Horizon. Macondo was one of two exploratory wells in the Gulf of Mexico. BP, because of this, had many standard operating procedures that were made as needed when needed, instead of being previously established. The drilling contractor upon the Deepwater Horizon was Transocean, while the supplier of the blowout preventer was Cameron. During this presentation, I will occasionally mention the term blowout preventer or BOP. The BOP is an apparatus that sits on top of the drill string that serves as a line of defense in the case of a blowout. Its primary job is to ensure well control. The blowout and explosion at the Macondo well was primarily due to inadequate management systems, which include auditing, training, and communication. Because of this, the Macondo well developed a faulty cement job and ineffective blowout preventer, which can be seen as the leading events to the immense loss of life and environmental damage. It is important to note that the Macondo well was drilled to completion. It wasn't until the crew was preparing to do a temporary abandonment of the well that things went wrong. To fully understand the following events, we must first familiarize ourselves with the steps to temporarily abandon a well. The first picture is of an open wellbore. This is a well that has been drilled to completion. Following this, a cement barrier is set to protect the integrity of the well and shut in the reservoir. The fluids within the well are then displaced, as seen by the blue arrow, or pumped out of the well to a mud gas separator in the case of the Deepwater Horizon. After this, the flow zone barrier, following the next arrow, can be set in a similar way. Once the fluids between the flow zone and the surface are displaced, then the surface plug, as seen on the fourth diagram, can then be set. It is important to note that BP's standard operating procedure states that a positive and a negative pressure test on each cement barrier must be completed and marked as a pass before moving on to the next step. At the time of the incident, the crew of the Deepwater Horizon were displacing fluids between the flow zone and the surface, as seen in the third diagram and indicated by the yellow arrow. At approximately 7:55 p.m. on the day of the explosion, the crew was analyzing the results of the negative pressure test. A negative pressure test ensures that the hydrocarbons from below the flow zone do not rise to the next section of the well from the sides. The crew had previously taken data for the pressure test for approximately 3 hours prior to their decision, collecting 4 data points. However, the data was not definitive to determine a clear pass or fail, due to the fact that the crew did not receive the criteria from BP until the afternoon before the test was to be conducted. In addition to that, it was a third-party instructions for the negative pressure test. The crew then decided to wrongly pass the well and continue to the next step of displacing the riser, or the area between the seafloor and the rig. Because the cement barrier was not equipped to hold the hydrocarbons back, the well begins to flow with hydrocarbons at approximately 8:51 p.m. As the flow rapidly increases, a pressure anomaly is noticed by the crew. The crew then shuts the pumps down and assesses the surface equipment, diverting the flow to the mud gas separator. Because of the lack of training between various contractors, it's important to note that the flow meter was not checked at any point. In fact, the person who was in charge of checking the flow meter was in his trailer about 100 meters away. At this point, the gas enters the riser and approaches the rig floor. Following that, about 3 minutes later, when the flow reaches the surface, the mud gas separator becomes overwhelmed and cannot take any more flow. The mud is then expelled onto the rig floor and prompts the crew to close the annular preventer on the BOP. Although the upper annular temporarily stopped the flow of hydrocarbons, it was believed that the failure to seal was due to a corroded preventer rubber, another maintenance issue. At this point, the upper annular released the flow and allowed the hydrocarbons to flow onto the rig floor. Here it met with an ignition source and caused the first explosion. Following the first explosion, a crew member enabled the AMF dead man sequence, another emergency system in the BOP, causing the blind shear ramps to partially close. The AMF deadman system, which was miswired by Cameron upon design and installation, was not able to completely close and caused the second explosion. The results of the explosion at Deepwater Horizons were terrible, with a total of 11 fatalities and 130 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico. The incident affected both the crew and the surrounding environment and left a lasting impact. In summary, the accident at Deepwater Horizon was based upon the insufficient management systems. If proper training, auditing, maintenance, and communication was put into place, the inaccurate conclusion regarding the pressure test and the BOP quality issues would have been identified and less likely to cause such an accident. It is pertinent to that additional training on process safety and non-technical skills be implemented into the curriculum of each employee before they start on the rig. In addition to this, due to the miswiring of the AMF deadman sequence system, there needs to be more rigorous testing for emergency safety systems to ensure that they will properly function in the case of an emergency system such as a blowout. The final recommendation is to establish and communicate a clear procedure and hazard analysis for all jobs. The lack of this was clearly demonstrated when BP provided a very last-minute negative pressure testing procedure. Thank you so much for your time, and here's my works cited page. Thank you.